Why do you instinctively take care of other people's emotions, yet rarely stop to ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Why are you so perceptive, so controlled, yet when you are alone, you feel a kind of exhaustion you can't quite put into words? Why, in relationships, are you always the one who's fine? The one who holds things together, who understands everyone, who can handle anything, yet almost never truly relaxes? Why, even though you are fully grown, do there still come moments when you feel tense, hollow, or quietly lonely for no obvious reason? And why, even when you know you're already tired, can't you seem to stop? Why does rest make you uneasy, being cared for make you feel guilty, and being useful, reliable, and low maintenance feel like the only proof that you matter? You may have told yourself this is just your personality, that you're naturally independent, disciplined, mature. But what if the real issue was never that you don't know how to relax, but that you were never allowed to? Some people didn't lose their childhood. They were never given one in the first place. And today, we're exploring the psychology of those who grew up too soon. Not to blame anyone, not to dwell in the past, but to understand this question. Why did you become who you are today? And do you still need to keep living this way? No child chooses to become the adult. Children take on responsibility because their environment gives them no other option. When a child grows up in emotional instability, in a home without real safety, they learn to observe early, not out of curiosity, but out of survival. They begin to track tone, expressions, silence. They learn when to stay quiet, when to appease, when to disappear. Not because they are wise, but because they realize something crucial. If I don't do this, things fall apart. And slowly, almost invisibly, a belief forms deep inside. If I don't hold everything together, no one will. This isn't a conscious thought. It's a bodily response, a survival reflex. To stay connected, to avoid abandonment, a child will give up many things, including their authentic self. So they grow up too fast, not physically, but psychologically. They learn to suppress emotions, manage atmospheres, care for others. Their maturity is not a strength. It is an adaptation under pressure. And the real problem is this: the role you were forced into as a child doesn't disappear when you become an adult. It stays, quietly shaping how you love, how you work, and whether you believe you're allowed to be taken care of. In psychology, there's a term for when children are forced to emotionally support adults instead of being supported themselves. It's called parentification. This is a reversal of roles. The child stops being just a child and becomes the caretaker, the mediator, the emotional regulator. They listen to adult pain. They soothe adult distress. They may even feel responsible for keeping the family emotionally stable. This isn't just unhealthy. It actually reshapes how the brain develops. When a child is repeatedly asked to regulate emotions, their own and others, the nervous system enters a state called hypervigilance. They constantly scan for danger, anticipate conflict, try to prevent collapse. In this environment, love stops being something freely given. It becomes conditional, transactional. If I'm good enough, if I'm quiet enough, if I keep things calm, maybe then I'll be safe. And so the child learns a dangerous belief. My needs are optional. Other people's needs are urgent. This belief doesn't stay in childhood. It becomes encoded in the nervous system, the emotional blueprint for every relationship that follows. From the outside, you may seem like the easiest person to be around, rational, thoughtful, low maintenance. You understand others before yourself. You rarely get angry. You rarely voice dissatisfaction. You become the good child, the quiet achiever, the emotional stabilizer. But this goodness isn't innate, it's strategic. Hypervigilance makes true relaxation almost impossible. Even in safe spaces, your body stays on alert. You're highly sensitive to emotional shifts, yet increasingly disconnected from your own internal state. Over time, this survival strategy gets mistaken for identity. You forget something essential. This is not who you are. This is how you survived. So you live behind the mask, you perform competence, you seem fine. Yet inside, something feels empty. Because while you were busy becoming the person who never causes problems, the part of you that needed care was quietly hidden away. And what is buried does not disappear. It waits to be seen. The part of you that was suppressed never left. It lives in your longing for closeness, in your anxiety around safety, in your unexplained exhaustion and numbness. You may tell yourself, it wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. I'm doing fine now. But fine is not the same as cared for. That inner child was never allowed to express pain. They learned to endure without ever being truly held. So somewhere inside, a quiet question keeps returning. Why did no one protect me? This isn't weakness. It's memory. When emotional needs are ignored for too long, people learn to invalidate their own feelings, not because those feelings don't matter, but because, back then, acknowledging them felt dangerous. You are grown now, but your nervous system is still operating on old rules. Adulthood doesn't automatically end these patterns. You may become fiercely independent, avoid asking for help, fear being a burden. You may give endlessly in relationships yet rarely feel secure. You may overfunction, fixing, managing, explaining, holding everything together, and wonder why resentment quietly builds. Rest may feel impossible because productivity becomes the only way you know how to feel valuable. And the most dangerous part is this: you may not even realize you're still living in survival mode. When chaos is normalized in childhood, the nervous system learns to treat chaos as normal. Calm feels unsettling. Gentleness feels suspicious. Love feels like a debt that will eventually come due. These aren't character flaws. They are strategies. They once kept you alive, but now they limit your life. When people think of healing, they imagine fixing, improving, becoming better, as if enough effort could erase the past and produce a new, flawless self. But for those who grew up too soon, this mindset often is the old pattern, just in a more acceptable form. You're already good at identifying problems, solving them, moving on. Real healing begins somewhere else, not with fixing, but with witnessing. Before you can change anything, you must allow yourself to acknowledge what actually happened. Until then, you may keep minimizing. It wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. I'm fine. But being fine does not mean being cared for. You ignored your pain back then, not because it didn't matter, but because in that environment, acknowledging pain itself was unsafe. Now, you don't need denial to survive. Witnessing means you stop rushing to explain, justify, or forgive. You turn toward the neglected part of yourself and say, I see how much you carried, and it wasn't your fault. Not to fix it, not to make it disappear, but to stop abandoning it. True strength is not endless resilience. It's the courage to let reality exist. And when you stop worshiping your strength and start respecting your wounds, change begins, slowly, quietly, and irreversibly. If you grew up too soon, remember this: your maturity was never the problem. The problem was that you had no choice. Now, you do. You can choose softness, you can choose rest, you can stop managing everyone else's emotions and begin honoring your own. This won't happen overnight, and it doesn't need to be perfect. There will be moments when you feel like a child again. Good. That's the point. Let that child come home. Let them cry, let them play, let them finally be seen. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. Maybe this is the first time you get to grow up the right way, not in pressure, not in fear, but in truth. This is Felix. May you understand yourself a little deeper and treat the growing version of you with more gentleness. See you next time.